Standing By, the Terry and Ted podcast, is sponsored by the UPS Store Canada.
Le podcasting, c'est nous.
La bibliothèque, c'est moi.
Bonjour, Ted.
Bonjour, Terry.
Ça va bien?
Oh oui, merci. Et vous?
Oui, j'ai toujours bien.
Mais mon français est exorcisé maintenant.
C'est pas une catastrophe.
C'est une vraie catastrophe.
C'est pas ma frappe, ça.
Moi, je parle,
Très impressionné, là.
je parle français comme Joe Clark.
Moi aussi.
Good reference, Joe Clark.
Yeah. Stick with us for more half-century-old political references.
Hey, I'm Terry DeMonte. That's Ted Bird. Thanks for coming to spend some time with us at the Pantelis Mike Ward Studios, where we are doing another edition of the Standing By podcast with Poseidon at the helm as producer, Bill Brownstein as our special guest, and as always, with a start with a big thank you to our very good friends at the UPS Store Canada. They are our title sponsor.
They're also our title sponsor.
That's right. Thank you, Ted. The UPS Store Canada. You've seen them in your neighborhood. Everybody sees the UPS logo and you think of the brown trucks that come with Christmas presents or, divorce papers.
They never came to me.
I'm sorry, Ted.
They did bring the divorce papers.
Okay, good. But the UPS Store is a shop in your neighborhood. And yes, there's one in your neighborhood because there's over 370 locations across the country. And they're run by entrepreneurs just like you. If you run a business at home and you need some help with packaging, with shipping, with getting something that's fragile across the country, if you need shredding services, if you want to open another mailbox so that your packages for your business can get there, they can do that for you too. If your passport's about to expire, they can help you with that. You're getting the idea. They can help you get through your day, whether you run a business or you run a household. When Jess and I moved across the country, the leftovers that were in the house after the movers left were all handled by the UPS Store. Again, run by an entrepreneur who lives in your community and understands what you're going through on a daily basis. And all you got to do to find the location near you is go to the upsstore.ca. They've got solutions for all kinds of businesses, and they can help you get your cookies to Aunt Effie in Drumheller.
There you go.
Okay, there you go. Big thank you to the UPS Store Canada. Our guest today is the legendary columnist from the Montreal Gazette, Bill Brownstein, also longtime friend of ours. Hello, Bill.
Salut, guys.
Ça va bien?
Ah, ça va très bien, là.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for coming.
It's great to be with you
We
guys.
were just saying, I had dinner with Bill and some friends on Tuesday night, and then this morning I was on the Corner Booth podcast with Leslie Chesterman and Aaron Rand, which you'll find on the Gazette website, and then we had breakfast. So we've covered all the
and
topics.
then we drove to the
then we drove
to
through
this
traffic.
studio,
So,
Because of the traffic, it took us 2.5 hours.
yeah.
to
So
get
we've been
here.
talking for 3 hours. So thanks for coming.
Yeah,
Bill.
we got nothing left. We talked about everything that we were going to talk
We did
about in the
talk about-
podcast.
But
Now we got nothing.
so much has happened since
Yeah.
Terry has returned. This is what I can't believe, because we were also talking. Terry, myself, Aaron Rand, and Matsumi used to do something called the Gripes of the Round Table. And it's only fitting, although we haven't done this for 3 years because COVID came and then Terry went. And it's like nothing has changed. Terry comes back, traffic worse than ever, not just the cities, the orange cones everywhere, the highways are a disaster. And then, of course, making things more interesting are the linguistic kind of issues that only seem to spring up here every other week. And now we have a number to call. Is it 311? It's 311.
I think it's
Oh, is that right?
To prove, like, in fact, Terry still qualifies as a historical
Yes.
Anglo,
Okay.
because he has a report card from 1978.
I do.
And I guess you do too in your own special way.
Yeah, but
But I was in New Brunswick.
yeah. So he
Yes,
Yeah.
but If you dealt with the city, this is
that's right.
If you dealt with the city prior to 2021 in English, you can do so.
You are
again.
still allowed to speak
is
English
that right?
to them.
Oh,
yes.
that's good.
That was I think very magnanimous.
Yes.
You have to
indeed.
swear on a Boy Scout Book of Honor that you are in fact the person who says that.
This is this is not surprising. Ted and I talked about this on previous podcasts. I was here when it started in 1976. And it's never ended. It never is going to end, and it always gets worse. But this one is particularly ugly, don't you think?
Yes.
The nature and the tone of Bill 96
Well, it's
is so heavy-handed.
degrading, so like insulting on a certain level. Yes, we're going to accommodate you if you're one of these 5 categories. Unless you live in a bilingual community, then you're allowed to get English services if you're officially bilingual. But the fact is that you're singled out in such a way as to say, okay, you belong to a group, we're giving you some kind of grandfather clause as long as you swear an oath of honor that you are who you say you are, you can go ahead. But to stigmatize a population like that is kind of insulting, as it would be, by the way, for francophones in the rest of Canada. If they had to phone to a certain number to prove, well, I can get my services in French if I'm a bona fide Franco. It's like when it's going to happen, like what Pizzagate happened. Like I way back when I wrote a story about a parrot that spoke only English.
That story that chased Peppermint Patty out. That's how she ended up in Alberta.
So then what happens is like the New York Times, the London Times, they pick up on stories like this, and then all of a sudden, we don't want to be getting like the powers that be. Don't like it when they're mocked or ridiculed.
The fact that the English community is always targeted, that put a chip on my shoulder back in 1977 because it forced my parents out. And I know people would say they weren't forced to leave, but economically they were forced to leave. My dad's boss was Jewish and said to the staff, we're leaving. If Levesque gets in, we're leaving. And he laid off 135 people and took 10 people with him to Ontario, set up shop there. So my parents moved. That means my brother moved there and was raised there. My sister moved there. She's there. Her kids are there. Those people are never coming back. I graduated from what was called Pierrefonds Comprehensive High School in 1976. There is not one person from my graduating class that I knew and interacted with that's left in Quebec. And that's the raison d'etre. They would like us all to leave, but when I look at the history of Quebec and the history of my family and hundreds of thousands of other English families, it's not like we were guests. We helped build the place. We're part of the DNA of the province, and that's slowly but surely being extinguished. And when Bill 96 came out and I read all about it from British Columbia, I said to my wife, thank Christ we're not there anymore, because here we go again.
Yeah. Well, the irony of it all is that those Anglos who remained, I don't know an Anglo who isn't really functionally bilingual.
Yeah.
The myth of that blue-haired Anglo who went to Eton's, that doesn't exist anymore. My kids went to school in French. They're French. They're fluent. I speak French. My French is fluent.
Ted speaks French.
And he's from New Brunswick.
Well, I dabble.
But your French has gotten very
It's
good.
gotten a lot better, mainly because I don't listen to English radio anymore. I listen to French radio
Well, you
because there's
told me
nothing
you listen to Arcand.
I listen to Paul Arcand, but I listen mostly to the sports station, BMP Sport. But I don't know whether to be ashamed of this or how to feel about this. If you asked me, what's Bill 96? I live here, I'm in the media here, and I honestly don't know. This 311 business that you're talking about is news to me, and the reason is I don't pay attention to it anymore.
And I think that's part of it's a good survival.
Yes, it's a great survival mechanism.
Exactly, yeah.
But as a result of not paying attention to it, I guess I'm not fighting for my rights.
Well, no, but
But it doesn't affect at street level. It never affects me.
No.
It never affects me at street level.
Yeah.
But like the point being, you're right, it doesn't affect most of us. I mean, we go on with our lives, and we have adapted. We didn't escape anywhere. We're happy living where we are because in spite of everything, Montreal, as Terry would point out, is a very electric place. the roads may be a shambles, the politics may be a shambles, but it's kind of fun on another sick level.
And it's home. It's home. I'm not from here, but it's home to me now because I've been here for so long.
Exactly.
Canada's most unique city.
It absolutely is. And yet, I mean, we are used in this wedge politics kind of game for the provincial government, like dealing where they get all their support mostly from outside the city. They use that because the language is in danger, the culture is in danger. People who never have to worry about Anglos or Allos for the most part in the rest of the province, they play that game, divide and conquer, and that's what gets some people elected a lot.
Yeah.
And it really is a tragedy because there's a lot of great stuff that goes on here. The city thrives on many cultural levels. And without that, I mean, it's like any other major city like New York or London where you've got an array of cultures and people get along, coexist. You have areas of the city where certain people live in certain cultures and people embrace that. And yet we would have some people would have us believe that that's contrary to the whole nature of life here, that we shouldn't be doing this, that the language is going to erode and other. I go to France. And I don't hear any of this stuff. And you come here and you'd swear we were in war. But like you say, we're generally unaffected. So it's just bizarre.
We're surrounded by a sea of English, Bill.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend the podcast talking strictly about politics. And
talk about the roads.
Yeah. One of the things I realize I've never asked you, I don't know your beginning story, Bill.
Well, I'm glad you asked, Terry.
Yeah, like I always
a pod from some far away. You know what? What's kind of interesting? You talk about my great grandparents came here in the late 1800s. You know, like mostly from Romania and settled around the Main, and that's where my family all hailed from. And this is our affinity to smoked meats,
yes,
and the rest is as a result. But lived here all my life, and you know. And adapted, like, so when I hear stories, you know, this is, like late 1800s, almost 200 years or whatever, family's been here.
Part of the DNA of the province.
Yeah.
But I only know you as, you know, I remember when Ted and I, you know, first started doing mornings together, you were the columnist in the Gazette. I always have known you as the columnist in the Gazette. What came before that?
Nothing.
Okay.
No, it's funny that you said it was never a desire of mine to actually be a writer. I wanted to be a singer growing up because singers got all the girls. I mean, as you know, and then maybe radio. But growing up, I mean, I'd never ever
Really? Yeah.
And I mean, I had English teachers up until several years ago. Those who were still alive would come up to me and say, "You're Billy Brownstein. You're not Bill Brownstein. You're not the guy who writes in the paper." And you were just not such a bad student, but such a disruptive student, such a joker, such a clown. That's impossible. Like, you're the only student we ever had. And I said, "What happened?" They paid me. And I mean, and essentially, you know, to a certain extent, I made films so for a while. You know, I did a film on Bill Lee way back when. I did a couple of documentaries on hockey and all the rest. But I mean, it's just something I grew into. Never went like you guys. You never went to radio school. I never went to journalism school.
And
it's evident.
Like us, you were part of a media business that you were there in the heyday. I remember you going on trips to Los Angeles and covering stories outside the city when there was money to do these kinds of things.
Well, yeah.
And it was it entertainment right from the beginning?
It was, and then like it kind of shifted over to where I'm just basically doing a city column that touches on like cultural life in the city, touches on everything from parking meters to you know, God knows what, depending on the day. But yeah, and it just sort of shifted. But it's all about the city on a certain level, even if it's entertainment. It relates to city life, and you know, and I like it that way because we really have to showcase our own. Because if we don't, nobody else will. We've talked about that before, like with local comedians. I have a soft spot, you know, for all the locals who should be getting much more attention. The city is like awash with great Look, Pantelis.
We're just talking to Pantelis.
People who are here, like Mike when he works in English, but the Joey Elias's, and Sugar Sammy on a certain level, and David Ack, all these people, and we don't give them the support. It's an inordinate number of Anglo comedians who've come out of here and thrive. Of course, they like the insecurity can bring out the best in a comedian. And we talk of the good old days when you guys had something called the Montreal Show at Just for Laughs, like amongst the most desired, the most sold out shows the festival ever had. So popular, they're gone. And I don't understand. And we have to support our own. Otherwise, nobody else will.
I remember when they said to us, and they said, "You guys, boy, you've done great, and we're not doing it anymore."
I remember the last time we did do it, you and I specifically got poor reviews in the newspaper the next day.
Not in the English paper.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Really, eh?
I don't remember who the writer was.
I had to be one time because I wrote about you guys. It was never...
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't you, but it was like these two old, out-of-date radio guys.
I remember this.
Yeah, and that was the end of the party right
that guy
there.
was summarily executed and gone.
Well, you know what? I guess it just goes to show the times change, attitudes change, and you become yesterday's news. And it was like I was saying on a previous podcast, my dad used to say, better to be a has-been than it ever was.
That's true. But that said, there would still be a demand today if you came out with that show. It would sell out in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think maybe we weren't at the point, because I think what happens is with a lot, I don't mean to compare us to other entertainers, but with entertainers, they have a really terrific run, and then there's a bit of a downslide. And if you stay with it and you're in the business long enough, you become a beloved entertainer or a beloved newscaster.
Like Don Rickles.
Like Don Rickles, right?
Don Rickles
Perfect example. People loved him until the very end.
And
absolutely.
There was what I didn't understand about that review, which I recall now, is
I don't even remember that.
I would say, I said this all the time, I would say almost every night we were on stage, I know you're not here to see us. I never did any stand-up. I hosted and welcomed people.
Yeah, I did.
Ted does
maybe I
stand-up.
sucked.
Yeah, maybe you were.
I probably did. I probably made a couple of references that didn't fly with the woke crowd, and this was when the woke crowd was just coming into.
You're still at it now. You're doing all these Legion.
I do more stand up now than I ever did, but I've learned some lessons along the way. Here's what I can do. Here's what you can't do. Like all stand-up comedians, and I don't call myself a stand-up comedian. I dabble, but
you're funny.
I've learned more and more, how to do it, how to craft a joke, what streets to go down, what streets to avoid.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, but that's what I love about comedies. The guys like Mike Ward, Sugar Sammy, Bill Burr, people who don't give a crap. People who will they don't care.
But it's not only not giving a crap, it's crafting,
being funny.
It's crafting the material in such a way that you can go to that place where nobody dares to go, and you just make it so funny and so clever and so interesting, and make it have a point. Make a point with it. And those guys are so good at crafting it that way.
They leave it. They're smiling while they're dissing. They're doing stuff. They have a great technique. These guys, but I respect these people because they couldn't get, like, if you had to live on college campuses in the States, forget it. You have to you have to be more sanitized than Seinfeld these days to get a gig.
Some of the all-time greats won't even go to college campuses anymore. I think like Seinfeld and Chris Rock to name a couple.
And Seinfeld doesn't do anything. I mean, what does he do?
Yeah, his stuff is pretty. It's funny, but it's quite vanilla in terms of he's never inappropriate.
I hate the notion of you've been around too long and washed up. If you've been around too long and you're not doing the work, that's one thing. But I've experienced in the last 10 years especially a warmth and a kindness from Montrealers who spent years listening to us. It happened this morning.
Yeah,
we went into a shop. We went into Littracits, where I get my glasses. I live in BC, and I still get my glasses from Littracits on Queen Mary.
As the bird flies, it's faster than going from Griffintown.
That's right. Yeah. And we were chatting with Imre, and he was talking to a customer in there who said, please, would you take a picture? My wife and I loved you guys so much, blah, 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 blah. And that's 2 years after I've been off the radio. And there's I don't know what there's just a kindness from people when you've been around for a while.
Well, we're very loyal to those of us who lived here most of our lives, our working lives and all the rest. We are very loyal because we don't have that many community leaders. We really don't.
Right.
Who are our spokespeople any longer? I mean, in the old days, you had the Richlers or the Nick Oftemars, or you had people like that. Who do we have today? And you guys, like on radio, it's just, we're very low because there's so few of us who are around still that we latch on because someone has to talk to us and be our spokespeople and make us feel good about our lives here.
I kind of miss that. Like when we were talking about it on Tuesday night, I kind of miss being part of the hoi polloi or whatever it is you want to call it. There was, I said and you were part of it, Bill, in the days when I was just getting out of CJEP. There was George Balkin and Gord Sinclair and Ted Blackman.
I was young.
And Jack Finnegan and Bill was very good friends with George Balkin, who was iconic, a huge leader and voice in the city. And those kinds of days, those kinds of eras with those kinds of people where Ted Blackman is painting the green line on St. Catherine Street because the city wouldn't do it for the St. Patty's Day parade.
Nick Oftemar's drinking it up after.
Yeah. Those that's gone now.
Yeah,
that's gone now.
It's totally gone. And that's why I'm saying, so it's not a shock to me that when I'm with you and people come up to, of course, we have very few people left who remind us of the days where it was okay to be who we were. We weren't, we were not disturbing other people. We weren't getting in the way of linguistic battle. We were just doing
and yet the people that I worked for made me feel washed up, and it took me a few months, a year to get over that.
Well, then you should know that there's a problem that doesn't exist on your end.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a miscalculation on their part.
Yeah, and I still don't understand that. Why, we've talked about this several times, why wouldn't people understand, from an advertising point of view alone, in terms of a local legend point of view alone, it's good for their business to have people who are known in the city. This kind of philosophy might work in other cities in Canada where you can run the same kind of music and the same sort of personalities, not contingent to having lived in this city, not being part of the city. But Montreal is very different. The Anglos who are here are unique. They don't belong to Ontario. They don't belong to anywhere else. They belong to the city, and they've made their mark on this city. And I would think, just in terms of popularity, in terms of advertising and everything, you'd want to keep these people around.
You would think.
But the decision was made outside of Montreal.
Yeah.
The decision in Ontario was made by someone who doesn't know about Montreal. And the people immediately under him who do know about Montreal are too scared for their own jobs to say anything.
And the support of the podcast, from the amount of people that are looking in on the podcast or downloading it, and the support we have for sponsors, I think speaks to the fact that some people are still interested in having to hear what we have to say.
Well, you wouldn't be doing this, would you?
That's right. That's right.
Bill, you wouldn't be getting advertisers coming in.
That's right. Let's. I want to hear some celebrity stories. Okay, because you've had so many encounters with movie stars and musicians, and when I bring up this topic, is there one that comes right to mind?
Well, I think it's the comedians I've always liked the best because they do a balancing act. They're walking on a tightrope every day, and it's got to be the most insecure of all businesses because you're washed up at a certain age. They don't care. We talked before. I have friends in the business who've been around for years and years, and it doesn't matter because of their ages. They're gone. They don't they're not part of the flow. But these are people who live by their wits. You see, if you're a good actor, you've got a lot of people. You've got agents. You've got managers. You've got
writers.
You got writers and everybody else to help you through. If you're a singer, it's the same thing. If you're good, you're good. And not to take away from a lot of these people, But I've always most been impressed by the comedians I've met because they're one-man shows. They write all their own material. They're on the road. They have to face like all sorts of crowds. Like I'm in awe of people like Sugar Sammy, like Mike Ward, who are able to play it on their own terms. And by the way, two of the sweetest people I have ever met in the business. Not because we're in a studio, but like two of the nicest people going and who understand the business, but also and they work both languages. They understand where they're from, where they are, and yet they don't hold back. Their comedy is terrific because they don't care. They're successful enough that it doesn't matter what if a reviewer says this, a person in the crowd says that. That's always impressed me. Actors are actors. I've met like a lot of actors.
Yeah, and, I know you have.
I met Robert De Niro before meeting him, and I said, oh man, this is going to be interesting. And he's basically, he's not a large guy. And he's basically a shell of himself. Off camera, he's not the raging bull.
He's very shy.
Very, very shy. And like they come alive when they have a script in front of them. Then I've met people like Al Pacino and Dustin Hoffman, who are just like, Dustin Hoffman talking to him, a fork falls at a table like, 100 feet away, and he's like jumping up in his seat, and like Al Pacino, not that he wants to get noticed, but wears hats like that are 10 feet high or something, like they thrive on another kind of attention, just adoration. They say they don't like paparazzi and all the rest of crap. They love it when, and like one of the most interesting people I ever met was Jane Fonda, who didn't have to care because she looked great, was smart, was funny. A lot of them, are terrified to say anything because, especially this day and age, because he goes on social media and they're done. You can't speak truth to power anymore at all. And those who can, like, unless you're on Saturday Night Live, unless you're, like a Colbert or someone like that, or a Jimmy Kimmel, the rest are terrified because, in the States, it's like, it's murder out there if you don't follow the line,
I don't find that those guys who you just mentioned, they don't speak truth to power anymore. They're part of the power. They're part of the establishment.
They are part of it, but I'm just saying, and those are the only people who are and by the way, I'm not saying in real life that they're gems to speak to either, but the point being they come across as very outspoken, or Seth Meyers or someone. Like they're interesting, but they've also got a team of 100 writers and producers behind them and all the rest, which is to go back to the stand-ups who don't have any of that, who go put their lives out on stage. There was Brian Regan, he's a comedian. I remember seeing him do a set at Théâtre Saint-Denis during the Just for Laughs festival, and he had some good material, but the crowd didn't respond. And he kept on repeating it, which is the worst thing you could do. Yeah. And then they get so enraged because their whole life is on the line. And I've seen this happen a few times with stand-ups, that people don't respond and they turn on the crowd because their whole
that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. And Brian Regan is a veteran, polished comedian. I'm surprised to hear that.
This was early in his career, but I'm saying it is the worst thing you can do, but there is so much insecurity involved. You feel like your whole career can be over, and this is at a big, showcase with Just for Laughs.
Please tell me, I have to do this for Jess. Please tell me Jane Fonda was nice.
Very nice.
Okay, and my wife is a huge Jane Fonda fan.
One of the nicest, and most sincere.
And Dustin Hoffman, for me, is he intense as I think he is?
More.
Really?
This was the guy who jumped up 20 feet in the air when a fork dropped 20 No, it's just, totally intense. But that's the acting school. They grow up and they overreact. But even that's better than getting the blandness that you get. They're actors. You give them a script, they come alive. You don't give them a script, they're very, very and they're not going to tell you anything anyway.
Here's a question I'm curious about. What's the longest you have or would wait for a star? So if there's an itinerary, and yes, Mrs. So-and-so will meet you at 2 p.m. at the Flungen Hotel, and you get there at 1:45, and 2 o'clock comes, and 2:15 comes, and 2:30 comes, and it's that. What did you ever get up and go, fuck this, and leave?
Yes. Because you know what? I'm not enamored. Like, these people actually need you. If they're talking to you, why? Because they're selling something.
Gotcha.
They're selling a TV show. They're not so much with singers, but with actors.
Yeah.
They're pushing a movie. They're pushing a TV show. They need you more than you need them on a certain level. They're not going to tell you anything anyways. They're going to be nice, play nice, and all the rest. Not that interested, and who cares? Because they're you don't play into their prima donna-ness.
Yeah, right. Did you spend any time at all with local? They're icons now. Maybe Mordecai less so than Leonard Cohen. But did you spend time with people like that?
Leonard wasn't around that often.
No, that's true.
He was in going
LA
on his mountaintop or in Greece or whatever. Very quiet. And Mordecai, interestingly enough, was the kind of guy, and you met him too. Yeah. We'd see him, and the worst thing you could do was compliment him on a book or something. Say, "Oh, I really love Solomon Grundy," or "I love," and talk to him about the Canadians. It was unbelievable. But very curmudgeonly.
Is it because he didn't know how to take a compliment?
I think he knew how to take a compliment, but
why didn't he want to hear it then?
He was that curmudgeon author.
He just didn't
he was
want to talk about it.
He didn't want to talk about him.
He didn't want to. He wanted to talk about the Canadians.
There you go.
It was kind of interesting. But the interesting thing about Mordecai, when he became ill, he became a lot different.
He became nicer.
Very, very warm. Yeah. Like my wife, who had never met him previously, only met towards the end of his couldn't have found him more charming. Of course, he loved women, but couldn't have found him more charming, more delightful, and she'd tell that to other people. Are you kidding me? But I mean, he was a complex guy. Grew up in a complex neighborhood, and he had a very complex. Unlike all the other people we talked about, had a very complex relationship with the powers that be here. Because you'll recall that in the New Yorker, he wrote these searing stories about life in Quebec and Montreal.
Yeah, well, he railed against the language laws.
I mean, he never compromised in terms of what fitting into the province.
But when I look back at it, there was a time where the gang from the radio station were at Ziggy's, every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we'd go in, and I realize now, I look back, and Nick Oftemar would be sitting with a Supreme Court justice from Chicago, and Mordecai Richler was one of Canada's foremost authors, world famous authors, and there he sat, and I think that was I'm sorry that was lost on me, because it was kind of a special era.
Yes, it was, and he didn't want that kind of attention. The sad thing came when they wanted a memorial. I mean, let's face it, one of the greatest authors ever, not just Montreal, Quebec, the country, North America, fabulous writer and all the rest. And yet when they wanted to pay some sort of homage, do you remember and they ended up with that ridiculous gazebo on the mountain, which was home to a lot of bird shit mostly. And
great fodder for gripes.
Yeah, great fodder for gripes. But, it was sad because it took so much politicking even to get that done. And then finally a library was able to carry it. But, we're so ultra sensitive to any kind of criticism here, especially from an Anglo.
Yeah.
And
well, I said to somebody the other day, English people, if it ever happens anymore, I think I was saying it to a Stewart.
Sterling.
You put that in my head to Sterling. I was saying, if Anglophones, if they want to anger or honor, if that happens, I don't know, once every 10 years they want to honor an Anglophone, it's a stupid little park or a back lane that you can pee in. Right, Nick's. Yeah. Exactly. It's the first thing I think
except that Nick would see the poetry
in
him having that alley where he did pee in.
Big time.
He would find that very, very interesting.
Do you think things were more corrupt back then, Bill, in terms of the politics of the city? Or do you think it's just as corrupt now? I'm a big believer that, there's certainly... the Olympics were awash in corruption, Expo, all of that. And, I credit Drapeau for putting it together and putting us on the map and bop, 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 bop. But we never seem to get past that. and we're paying the price for it today.
Yes.
All of these things are falling down because of all the corruption and shoddy workmanship that went on.
Just give you an example. When you see Pine Avenue being repaired for the 15th
thank
consecutive time, like over and over again.
What's the deal?
Or you go around the water reservoir on McGregor there, whatever it's called now, and basically like like every day there's something going on, but they're redoing the same spots.
Well, the pine thing I don't understand.
The pine thing, none of it I understand. But, like my joke is that basically with the reservoir where it's always under construction is that they found the Temple of Doom, Harrison Ford, and they're digging like for some sort of gold treasure somewhere. I don't get it. It's so when you say is it is corrupt, like something is going on there when we're redoing sidewalks, the same sidewalks over again, when we're redoing all the infrastructure stuff over and over again. And it might not be as like glamorous as like Olympic Stadium corruption, but there's something happening here somewhere.
It's weird because in some corners of town, you walk on sidewalks that haven't been touched since I was in grade 2, and then there are other ones that are constantly getting paved over and over again. We're going to take a moment to pay a tribute to one of our supporters, and I'm going to start by talking about my friends at Matelas Bonheur. We always say on the podcast we love to deal with a family business. The gang at Matelas Bonheur are a family-run business. I met Norm many years ago and said, how did you get involved in selling mattresses? Because if you go to a Matelas Bonheur store, you see that they only deal in a good night's sleep, meaning the stores just have mattresses and futons, linens and pillows and everything that has to do with a good night's sleep. And Norm, that was his passion. That's what he liked to do. He started by delivering mattresses out of a pickup truck and then opened the original store on Gouin Boulevard in Saint-Geneviève. And now they are one of the biggest in Quebec. They're Quebec-owned, Quebec-run, family-run. They deal with mostly Canadian suppliers. They have stores all over the area, on and off the island of Montreal. When you go, you'll see what I'm talking about when it comes to a shopping experience. You'll be warmly greeted, you won't be pressured, and you will come away with a mattress that fits your budget and will change the way you sleep. Just do yourself a favor. If you're in the market for a mattress, a new mattress, I know there's lots of places to buy one, but at least get into one of their locations. Find the one closest to you at matelasbonheur.ca.
Bill, how did you enjoy the ride to the studio in the Jaguar Uber?
I loved it.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Jaguar Land Rover Laval is another one of our sponsors, and whenever Terry comes to town to do the podcast,
They spoil us.
They give us a courtesy vehicle. It's the XF30T sedan this time around with the inline four-cylinder, a car that size with a four-cylinder engine, but it's turbocharged. So it's got all the giddy-up that you'd want. Jaguar has the XF, the F-Type, which is the coupe, the sports coupe. We had one of those last year. That was fun.
Vroom, vroom.
And various models of SUVs. Jaguar has SUVs now. Everybody has SUVs now, including Jaguar. The F-Pace, the I-Pace, and the E-Pace, their electric vehicle. There's also the Defender, the Discovery, and the Range Rover on their Land Rover side. And they're also, Nino and Renato Di Cubelis are the owners of McLaren Montreal. And they have a beautiful showroom up on Chambéry Boulevard in Laval. Terry and I were up there recently for their open house and saw some spectacular vehicles. I don't think the Artura was there. That's the electric McLaren. If you want to ever sneak up on somebody at 300 kilometers an hour, this is the car for you. The Artura is a plug-in hybrid that maintains McLaren's known incredible speed. 0 to 60 in 3 seconds.
1, 2, 3.
You're at 60.
And where does that take you in this city?
Not far. It's a beautiful vehicle, and the only McLaren, it says here, that you can drive home at 2 a.m. and not wake up the whole neighborhood. I think the rest of them have a bit of an exhaust note.
A little bit.
Yeah, but a beautiful, beautiful exhaust note. JaguarLaval.com, LandRoverLaval.com, and McLarenMontreal.ca, I believe. We thank them for their support and for the snazzy sedan to ferry Terry and Bill around town in.
Bill, is the REM going to make a difference, and how is it going to change the city?
Well, apparently the noise factor.
Yeah, apparently it's loud.
It's very, very. It's so funny. As soon as this thing is ready to go, I'm hearing from people who live close by that the noise level is like.
Well,
you
shouldn't live in Griffintown. That'll teach you.
Is it the clatter that's going to make the noise?
It's like a sonic boom, apparently.
Yeah, really?
So people aren't used to it
because they're not run by diesel engines.
No. I was exposed to it,
and this goes a lot, by the way, during the day.
What is it? It's LRT.
Right.
I was exposed to that in Calgary, and there's a SkyTrain in Vancouver. We don't live near either one of them, but I mean, they make a little bit of noise. If you live near public transit, you make a little noise.
The complaints I hear is people think it's a great idea and all the rest, but in order to get to the stations in the West Island, for example, you have to take a car and park it. But they're apparently not there is no parking to be had at all the stations.
What are they thinking then?
Well, they're not. Is what they're thinking, and apparently, and then you end up having to take a car and a bus.
Yeah.
Then it defeats the whole purpose. And but that's what happens. There's not long-term thinking. There's
no vision.
There's no plan. From what I hear, and I'm sure it's going to be a lovely thing and help a lot of people who are moving from the South Shore, West Island, whatever. But yet, if they don't plan for auxiliary transport, to get there,
in every city, like in Calgary, the LRT is magnificent, but it comes with a parking lot.
Right.
So you can drive to the train. If you live way in the north end of Calgary, where I lived, you can drive to the train, park your car, and get on the train.
Right.
Like when my dad took the train from Roxborough to Central Station, you could park next to the Woolworths.
Right.
On Gwen Boulevard. You parked in the morning, you got on the train, you came back in the afternoon and drove home.
Right.
I mean, that's the way it's supposed to work, isn't it?
Theoretically.
Okay.
Do your imitation of the LRT again. That was good.
No, but apparently, people living in Littleburg, St. Henry, they said the noise is beyond.
Yeah.
It's worse than having an airplane going.
Is it already running there?
Well, practice runs.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever been to Chicago near the LRT? Stand under the LRT.
The subway that's not a subway, the elevated subway, the L.
The L.
Exactly. Isn't there are a number of famous scenes in My Cousin Vinny?
Yes.
Where Joe Pesci has a cheap hotel room right beside the L.
Yes,
I thought you said the train doesn't come by here. And so, do you think it's going to, because what's happening, I noticed because it's my old neighborhood, it's where I grew up, down by Fairview, let's get rid of most of the parking lot so we can put up apartment buildings so people can live next to the REM. And I would imagine that's going to happen all along the line where they can put up more density and high tower condos and whatever, which is seems to be the new hobby in Montreal. It's see how fast we can get a black gray box up onto a street. I think it's going to change the nature of the town.
It will, but for the life of me, I can't. When we complain about the roads and construction and all the rest, the city is responsible for maybe 30%. The fact that they give permits to all these people to build condos, that's crazy. The mess that is made. I don't even understand the demand for how many condos can a city have? I mean, there's got to be a limit, a roof to all of this. I don't get it.
I'm not sure. Have I told you how much I enjoyed my experience in Griffintown?
Yes, I remember it well. Well, you're lucky you're not there now because first of all, you couldn't get out of your front door if you did find parking. You would get anywhere.
Yeah, no.
Bill, what neighborhood did you grow up in?
I grew up in several neighborhoods. I'm glad you asked. I started off in the Mainish area, then went to Outremont, then went to where to go? Westbound. Then I went to NDG. Then I went to outside the city, Beloeil.
Oh, Beloeil!
What were you doing in Beloeil?
I don't know.
You must have been the entire Jewish community, were you?
The entire Anglo community.
Did you live there when it was
Richelieu, Saint Mathias?
Were you there when it was Belial?
Beloeil, yeah. Gumpersley lived there then.
Yeah, that's what English people used to call it.
Yeah. The reason I ask is the Jewish community in Montreal is so integral to this city's history. And Terry was
A
talking
lot of
about
it's dissipated, though.
Well, this is where I was going to go. Terry was talking about everyone he went to high school with moved away. Has that been your experience with your friends in the Jewish community as well, or
enough,
your generation?
Like when I went to school, like I was never living in very predominantly Jewish areas.
Okay.
So I mean, friends from school or whatever were from all walks. But yes, I mean, they most left. A lot stayed. Like my kids, their generation, like many, like my relatives who have kids, they're all gone elsewhere.
Your kids are gone, aren't they?
No, my kids are all here.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
What about your Hollywood son?
He came back.
Oh,
he
he
was
came
working
back?
on
Wow.
films here.
Wow, neat.
And
That's cool.
but he just, they love the city.
Yeah.
But they're atypical because most of the people they went to school with have long since moved on, and like family and friends who have kids are all in Toronto or other places. So I'm very fortunate as far as that's concerned. But I think that a lot of people, like, I mean, you know, there's certain areas of the city more like, you know, Laval or Côte Saint-Luc or Outremont more associated with, like, you know, a lot of Jewish population, you know, except for the Orthodox Jews who are still there.
Right.
They moved on.
Well,
I mean, the population has dwindled.
That's a shame
It is
because it's part of what I love about Montreal.
Yeah.
I didn't experience any of that growing up in Fredericton. There was a very tiny Jewish community in Fredericton, but moving to Montreal, I really got to learn about Jewish culture. I had Holocaust survivors as landlords in NDG. Fascinating, wonderful, lovely people, and the stories that they told, and I had such deep, abiding respect for them, and it was really it was a privilege to know them.
Yeah, I'd say most of the Jewish population, it's a senior Jewish population who just never left because it's not worth it. I mean, you've spent all your life here. You're not going to move at 80.
Yeah.
Because I've always believed, and I still believe this, after 1976, there would not have been an English community if it wasn't for the Jewish community, because in 76, 77, in the early days of the pressure from the government with language laws and whatnot, the Jewish community were like, we're not going anywhere. We've been chased around enough, we're not going anywhere.
Yes.
And they stayed, and they fought, and they pushed back. And they sent their kids, you know, when you couldn't send your kids to this school, they would send their kids to private school. And they, you know, they built things and were such a big part of what made Montreal. It'll be sad if what you're saying is true.
Well, the landscape's changing. Like a lot of, like my family's, a lot of intermarriage. So it's like, it isn't the same as as like monolithic kind of culture. But it's funny you mentioned that because I did this book, Schwartz, as you know, and then it was turned into a musical. One of the big songs there was like, I mean, about like Jewish migration from like being booted out of every country in Eastern Europe, you know, and then coming here, like being thrown out of here, thrown out of there. And you finally find a place, you know, like around the Main, which is how it all got established, huge Jewish population, which settled there. And but sadly, that's all. But it's changed for everybody. The whole cultural community, you know, around the Main, it was like Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Jewish. It's not the same as what it was.
The building that we're in on Chabanel, this whole community was
used
built.
to be a schmutta house.
It was a whole schmutta business from end to end.
Yeah.
You know, largely owned by Montreal Jewish families.
So Mike Ward is saving the community. And he'll give you pajamas at wholesale prices out the back door.
You want to do the tweet sheet?
Yes, I do.
I've curated a tweet sheet for Bill.
Tell
Bill about the tweet sheet, Ted.
Well, every day on my morning show on Light 106.7, Bill, I'll find three funny things I think are funny on Twitter. And
you think
I
funny.
think
Yeah, right. Does everybody agree?
Not necessarily. We read them on the air and we call it the tweet sheet. And of course, Twitter being Twitter, I find ones that I can't read on the radio because they're a little too salty. So I saved them for the podcast. And I found three that made me think of you. I thought Bill will appreciate these because he's a writer. And I know one of them is salty. I don't know if the other two are, but I picked them because I think that you will appreciate them as a writer. There are a lot of good writers and real wits on Twitter. Twitter can be a real garbage can, but that's not it. That's one of the ones for the last episode with Terry. Nobody look at the screen.
I'm not looking at the screen. I'm not.
Sorry, I should have given you. I should have given you a heads up on
I
this.
feel like we're in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Don't look, Marianne. Don't look.
I should have given Poseidon more of a heads up on this. I did email those to you, though, Poseidon, I think, with Bill's name on it.
Poseidon is our producer, by the way.
That's right.
And quite an adventurer.
Yes. Yeah. Yes,
He's
he
also
is.
the Greek god of the sea,
Yes,
as you
right.
may or
Yes,
may
I
not
know.
know.
With
Yeah.
big
Of the ponds,
forks,
actually.
The big, didn't Poseidon have those like?
Nobody look. Just
Not looking.
No, that's not it either.
No,
Okay. Yeah.
No.
none of them.
None of them, no.
No way.
Okay, well,
Okay.
talk some more, and I'm going to find them in my email and
'Cause
send them to Poseidon.
It's from the email.
that has Bill's name on it?
Yeah.
We're keeping you, eh, Bill?
That's okay.
I know.
Oh, no, I sent you
I was
another
just
one
checking when
saying
you wanted to throw
scratch
me
the
out.
previous one.
Yes,
That's why.
One of the
yeah.
joys
Okay,
of
okay.
podcast is none of that shit matters.
Yeah, I know.
Right? We can talk while they're talking. There's
Who
no
cares?
boss outside the door
Yeah.
going, "You're going too
You're
long.
talking too long.
You're talking too much." There's none of that.
We have to
Poseidon's
play
got-
Kisses Rock and Roll all night again.
Nobody.
Would
Nobody
you like?
look again.
Can I play you Black Betty, Ted?
Yeah.
Those are the ones.
Those are the ones, yeah. Yeah, that's the last one. I want to use that one last.
All right.
This one's last.
That one's last, yeah.
Hold on. Let me just see that nobody can see this.
Yeah.
Nobody can see this. Good. Okay.
And the other two, it doesn't matter which order. We can start with this one if you're
Okay.
Pardon me.
That one's last.
That
you
one's
said, right?
last, yeah.
Perfect. All right.
All
I
right.
would like to apologize.
No
That's
worries.
okay.
No, it was my fault. It was
Please.
my fault. I should have been clear.
No,
More
it
clear
was
with
my
you.
fault.
Yeah. This one is from at 6'2" and even. I saw 3 ravens yesterday and fell into an Elizabethan despair, so I immediately put on my trusty codpiece, wrote 100 sonnets, and began wooing several maidens by the light of a beeswax candle.
That's beautiful.
Isn't that great?
That's Shakespearean.
Yeah,
isn't
it is. It really is.
That's-
You could look at them
Yeah,
on the
you can
screen,
look at
Bill,
it
as
now.
they pop up. now that-
Elizabethan despair.
Isn't that
How about
nice?
that?
That's
I really
incredible.
like this person's name, Al Dente.
Al Dante.
Yeah.
That's almost as good as Poseidon.
Yeah. The light of a beeswax
Well,
candle.
that's like beautifully crafted.
Isn't that nice? Yeah. And so is this one as well from at Giando. Can one of you millennials make my phone ring sound like a Tennessee farmhouse screen door closing on a languid August afternoon? Ice cubes clinking in a pitcher of sweet tea as a cigar box banjo gets tuned.
This is like
Great.
this is art.
It really is.
And you know
That's
what?
fabulous literature.
I love it
my
because I can hear
God.
it in my head.
But I mean, you have an image there, and it's like both of
Yes.
those things are so rich, like
Rich imagery.
Oh, like
Yeah.
beautiful.
All right.
This is Twitter.
It is, yeah. Well, the next one is more Twittery, probably.
Okay.
Twittery.
Yeah.
I like that.
From at Eddie Ferraro, publisher, would you consider using a pseudonym, Edgar Allan Ponyfucker? Why?
Now that's Twitter.
Isn't that great?
That's great. Way back when, I'll give you an aside here. Somebody, I don't know who, I think I was there, asked Leonard Cohen if he ever considered changing his name. He said yes. And I said, to what? Thursday Cohen. True story.
That's terrific. Bill, let me ask you, you mentioned before we turned the mics on that you're done with social media. Eh?
Yeah, I
Can't be
mean,
bothered.
it's just like...
Fuck that.
Isn't it a tool for what you do, though,
Yeah,
Bill?
but there are a lot of tools running the show.
but this one is not. You don't
Are you
consider
referring
social
to-
media to be essential in
No, but
2023?
like when Elon Musk got involved, and this gamesmanship that goes on. And
So you're out on principle? Is that what you're saying?
To the point I wasn't badly trolled. I must say, never had bad experiences. But I hear about so many people who are just bullied and trolled, and kids, and life is way too short to get. And too many people like who don't do anything else in life, like are on Twitter all the time, and like all of a sudden they've got like this pulpit, and like who are these people? And like it's like their opinions, their messages matter as much as well, okay, the person who crafted those beautiful
Edgar Allan Ponyfucker?
Exactly. And then it gets to a point where, everybody's got as a windbag and everybody's got something to say.
Yeah.
And I like the silence. I like the images conveyed by both the first two tweets.
Yes,
where there's a certain silence and there's where do you get that kind of
calm
rich
and a
image?
serenity.
You don't get that kind of rich imagery for the most part on Twitter.
Not on Twitter, you don't.
No, you don't.
No.
And you have a feeling it elicits something quiet and romantic and peaceful and all the rest, and you get just wars going on.
When you said tools were running the show, I thought you were referring to the corporations.
Yes. And I don't know. It's it's all these people who just want to assert their nastiness, their power on a certain level, and who cares?
What is a favorite thing about Montreal that you would miss, Bill, if you did what I did and moved away?
I think you would be the restaurant scene, the bars that we like, the people we know, but basically it's alive with food. It really is. I mean, there's so many great places to go to.
Yeah.
You saw that list, 100 best restaurants in Canada. 34 were from Quebec, 27 from Montreal.
Yeah.
And it's a great scene. There's nothing like this that exists anywhere else in the country. And I would miss that. And you miss your friends. I mean, you miss the fact that I miss you. Not being here, Ted's still here. But the fact is that it's nice that they're, that's why the Sugar Sammies, the Mikes and all the rest. It's very heartwarming that these people are still here because it's very unique in its own way. Even though we are a subculture of a subculture of a subculture at a certain point, this is our community and this is our life. I don't know any other life. I've been offered jobs. You have, everybody has, in Toronto and other places. I could never be. I'm sure you have. But the point is that you couldn't give this up. There's as much as we bitch and gripe about the place, there's a lot to love also.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I've learned since leaving. There's a real comfort in home because this is where
we're from.
This is where we come from. This
well, you
is
know what? This
knew.
is not where I come from, but I can't go anywhere else.
No.
This is it for me.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere.
No.
Well, they won't let you back.
That's true.
Yeah.
And also, my kids are here. 3 of the 4 are here. So, no, 2 of the 4 are here.
And
wait a minute. Where are they going?
And that's the other thing. Astonishingly, all my kids who live here, work here, they're here.
Yeah.
And
boy, are you ever lucky in that respect,
yeah,
Bill?
exactly.
Because
In a
so
big
many
way.
people, their kids have gone.
Almost nobody I know,
Yeah.
my brothers, sister, none of them have kids still here. Friends, all of them have moved away. Very, very few people that I know have kids still around, but they love it. They went to French schools, immersion, and all the rest. They've fit in very well. Their lives have not been affected per se because they adapt and they work and they're at home. I mean, it's nice. It's very gratifying. I mean, your kids as well to have them around.
Yeah. Well, the 2 oldest ones, one lives in France now, and Sam is in Toronto, and he's got an internship at Elevation Pictures. So
Elevation
hopefully you'll be interviewing him within the next 5 to 10 years.
Elevation Pictures does some good stuff.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. He's a tenant of one of the co-owners of Elevation Pictures, Noah Siegel. Do you know Noah Siegel?
I've heard the name.
Yeah, and he's married to a childhood friend of Sam's mom. So Sam lives in their basement, and now he's an intern at the company. And one day, I'm hoping he'll be a movie mogul. Who? What did Thumbs Repaw used to say? Who will keep me in the lifestyle
to which I hope to become accustomed.
Yes. True.
God bless Thumbs wherever you are.
Yeah.
Thumbs Repaw was a legendary
Yes,
radio producer.
Yes, he were.
In the days of George Balkan, and then I inherited him when I went to CJD. We have to thank a couple of more supporters of the podcast before we're done today, and much to our surprise and delight, Vozwin are with us once again. Who are Vozwin? Vozwin are a company that will help you if you have an invention over there, Einstein. No, not Einstein, Edison.
Yeah.
Right. It's an odd way to open our tribute to Sean and the people at Vozwin. But when Sean called us and said, we like the podcast over at Vozwin, and we said, what does Vozwin do? And he said, well, we help inventors. And then I said, are you sure you want to be involved with us? And apparently it worked.
It did. They've gotten inquiries from people who listen to the podcast. We have inventors and innovators listening to the podcast, and they've asked Vozwin if they can help them out. Vozwin call themselves a technology strategy company, and if you do have an idea for an invention or innovation, they can take you from the very beginning of the process to the very end. As Terry says, they'll take the idea from in your head and put it in your hands through the product development process and onto the CTO style service, Chief Technology Officer, don't you know? They'll get it to market for you, or they'll show you how to get it to market. So if you have anything that requires an engineering component, mechanical, electrical, industrial engineering and design, they also do software development. Vozwin can help you. Vozwin.com. That's VOZWIN.com. And thanks again, Sean Smith, owner and founder of Vozwin, for putting your faith and trust in us. We appreciate it.
And we'd like to take a moment to extend our sympathies to the folks at Merson Automotive, who are saddened by the demise of the Bavarian money pit.
That's right. My BMW has gone to the great junkyard in the sky, Bill. Yep. And and that means I don't have to take it down to Merson every second week anymore to get some sort of outrageous repair done to it.
Val answered the phone there with, what is it now?
Yeah, what happened now? What happened now? Well, it's all done. The engine seized and the car's all done. So now I have to get something new, and I will take any potential vehicles to Merson for a pre-purchase inspection. One of the many services the Mersons offer. Tires are their specialty and have been since we've known them, Terry? It's always been. Yeah. That's when it gets really busy at Merson, is during the spring and the fall, the tire change season, which means now is a good time of the year to go and get any maintenance or repairs that you might need done. And, of course, to get tuned up and inspected if you're going on summer holiday. Merson have something called the Don't Get Eaten by a Bear Guarantee. Actually, they don't. I made that up. But they'll fix your car up so that you don't break down in the middle of nowhere and get eaten by a bear. Yep. I've tried to convince them to offer that guarantee, and they've said to me, that's your worst idea since you recommended corn tires. But I always thought tires made of corn would be a good winter tire because with the niblets, you'd get some good grip, wouldn't you think?
Call Sean at Vozwin.
There you go. I'm sure Merson appreciate that plug. MersonAuto.com. And they also physically exist as well as online. You can find them on Saint Jacques, just west of Cavendish.
One of the services that I miss that they offer is storing your winter and summer tires. You don't have to schlep tires back and forth. Ask them about that. Bill Brownstein has been our wonderful guest. Bill, we've kept you too long. I hope we haven't kept your son waiting too long.
Oh, he's downstairs.
Okay. And I want to thank you because we had a nice friendship that grew out of. I can't remember the first time you interviewed me, but
it's got to be back in the early Shom days.
Yeah, a long time ago, and then we
had a shared love of a certain alcohol.
Yes, we were quite fond of a good vodka. Yes.
Oh, which one?
Are we allowed to say?
Yeah, I think so.
They're not advertising.
No,
here.
they're not, and they would never. But we were a couple of goose guzzlers.
Okay.
Yeah, we loved Grey Goose, and often the interview would be conducted at my favorite booth at Ziggy's over a Grey Goose.
And often we would forget what we were talking about.
They were great fun.
And I'll bet when you were on Bill's podcast earlier on the day that we're recording this, I'll bet when he sat down, you guys who hadn't seen each other in however many months, if not years, I'll bet you picked up like you saw each other last night, didn't you?
Well, we've been in touch, though.
Yeah. But that's the sign of true friendship. When you don't see somebody for a while and you sit down and you pick up like you saw them yesterday.
It's one of the great things. And you've been so supportive and kind to me over, periods of time. Like when I was shitting my pants daily when I followed George Balkan. I thought that was an unwinnable job to take on.
I think
and you were very supportive.
Yeah, but
Thank
you know what? George loved the idea of having you follow him, a voice that the city knew. And there was a wisdom there. He had a lot of input into who would take over once he was gone.
Well,
and he thought you would like as a Montrealer would have been perfect.
And you know what? Without his blessing, I would have never got off the ground.
But it wasn't like haphazard.
No.
It was very well thought out.
And you wrote a really beautiful column when I got out of the hospital. That was very kind because I didn't.
Thankfully, you spared me from having to write another one, which would have been a lot sadder.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
Bill
God you're
Brownstein.
still here.
Thank you, Bill.
Ted?
Bill Brownstein's been our special guest.
Thanks for coming.
Pleasure.
You can read Bill in the Montreal Gazette. The Montreal Gazette. The Gazette. You can also watch him on the Corner Booth podcast, which is on the Gazette platform. And, you used to be able to watch him on Gripes, but now
we're doing our own.
Now they do their own thing. So, merci beaucoup, Bill.
De rien.
Standing by, the Terry and Ted podcast has been brought to you by the UPS Store Canada, delivering more for small businesses in Canada.